For years, fans of Overhaulin have wondered what really happened to Chip Foose. The man whose name became synonymous with jaw-dropping custom cars and televised automotive magic seemed to vanish from the spotlight, leaving only memories of his legendary builds. Rumors swirled online. Had he retired? Was the show over for good? Was there some scandal behind the scenes? The truth, as it turns out, is far less dramatic but far more inspiring. Chip Foose didn't disappear. He didn't retire quietly or step away in defeat. Instead, he pivoted, growing his influence behind the scenes while continuing to shape the car world in ways the cameras couldn't always capture. The fame of Overhaulin was just the surface. Beneath it, Foose has been running his design empire, mentoring young builders, unveiling award-winning vehicles, and even launching new ventures that push automotive innovation forward. What many didn't realize is that his career has never been tied to TV ratings or headlines. Chip Foose has been quietly building a legacy, literally and figuratively, one car, one design, and one public appearance at a time. The man we thought we knew from the show is still very much alive, still creating, and still transforming the way we see custom cars. The real story of Chip Foose isn't about fading from the public eye. It's about the relentless drive that keeps him at the forefront of automotive design, even decades long before Overhaulin made Chip Foose a household name. He was already carving out a reputation in the automotive world, one built on precision, imagination, and relentless dedication. Born into a family of car enthusiasts, Foose grew up sketching vehicles while most kids were drawing cartoons. His father's influence was profound. Every spare moment involved cars, whether restoring, building, or simply talking about design. Chip absorbed it all, learning not only how cars functioned, but how they could look, feel, and inspire awe. By the time he reached adulthood, Foose had developed a style all his own, a blend of sleek curves, flawless lines, and attention to detail that would eventually become his signature. He wasn't just a mechanic or fabricator. He was an artist. Every car he touched became a canvas, every panel a brushstroke. Yet, even with extraordinary talent, the road wasn't easy. The automotive industry demanded connections, money and timing, and while Foose had talent in spades, he still had to navigate doors that didn't open easily. His first major breakthrough came when he joined the legendary Boyd Coddington team, one of the most influential hot rod shops in America. Under Coddington's guidance, Foose honed his craft, learning to turn raw concepts into show-stopping realities. He began winning awards and gaining recognition in custom car magazines, solidifying his place among the top designers of his generation. Still, the work was relentless. Late nights, endless revisions, and the pressure to create perfection were constants. Then came Overhaulin. The show catapulted Foose into mainstream fame, transforming him from an industry insider into a national icon. Suddenly, millions were watching as he redesigned ordinary cars into extraordinary works of art, often revealing them to unsuspecting owners in moments of shock and joy. The fame was thrilling, but it also came with challenges. Public attention intensified scrutiny, and every detail was judged not just by experts, but by fans with high expectations. The pressure to consistently produce jaw-dropping builds became enormous. Yet behind the cameras, Chip's world was more than television. While many assumed he had made it and could slow down, he was busier than ever. His company, Foose Design, Inc., became a hub for innovation, blending artistry with engineering to create vehicles that pushed the boundaries of custom design. Each project required meticulous planning, hundreds of hours of work, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. Fame may have introduced him to the public, but his reputation was built in the garage, where he could control every curve, every weld, and every detail. Over time, the perception of Chip Foose as simply the TV personality from Overhaulin began to misrepresent the reality. He didn't vanish from the public eye because of scandal or failure. The show's breaks and platform changes made him less visible to casual fans. But in the automotive world, he remained a powerhouse, winning awards, mentoring young builders, and leading groundbreaking projects. Behind the scenes, he was shaping the future of car design, influencing a new generation while maintaining the artistic integrity that had made him famous. Even as appearances on television became less frequent, Foose stayed committed to the craft that defined him. Every car that left his shop reflected decades of experience, a lifetime of passion, and a refusal to compromise. Fame had opened doors, but skill and dedication kept them from closing. For Chip Foose, the true measure of success was never ratings or headlines, it was excellence, innovation, and the ability to inspire, all in every vehicle he touched. What many fans didn't see was the relentless drive behind the man in front of the camera. Chip Foose didn't disappear after Overhauling ended. He continued to work tirelessly, creating, mentoring, and transforming ordinary metal into rolling masterpieces. Fame was fleeting, but his influence and the cars he created were enduring, a testament to a lifetime spent mastering the art of design. In other words, the Chip Foose we loved on television was just the beginning. The real story, the one that fans often missed, was happening quietly behind the scenes, in the shop with every weld, every sketch, and every perfectly polished car. Later, as Overhauling continued to capture the public's imagination, Chip Foose found himself navigating the complicated balance between celebrity and craftsmanship. The cameras made him famous, but they also created misconceptions about the man behind the builds. Fans assumed that the television spotlight reflected the totality of his career, yet the truth was far more intricate. Chip's life revolved not around ratings or publicity, but around the artistry and precision that had defined him long before the show aired. Even at the height of Overhauling's popularity, Foose remained intensely private about his personal life. While viewers marveled at the transformations he created on camera, few understood the level of planning, problem-solving, and sheer labor that went into each build. A reveal that looked effortless on television often represented hundreds of hours of design, welding, fabrication, and fine-tuning. Foose approached each project like a sculptor, shaping metal and imagination alike into something that could elicit awe in anyone who saw it. The constant public attention brought pressures he hadn't anticipated. Fans expected perfection, and the cameras amplified every detail, both good and bad. Each episode added to the myth of Chip Foose the TV star, obscuring the reality of Chip Foose the craftsman. Behind the scenes, he was still grinding, still sketching, still iterating designs, still mentoring young builders who would become the next generation of automotive talent. He understood that his influence extended far beyond the show, and he took that responsibility seriously. During this period, Foose also began expanding his business. Foose Design Inc. became more than a garage. It became a hub for innovation, bringing together engineers, fabricators, and designers who shared his vision. From concept sketches to completed vehicles, each build was a testament to precision, creativity, and dedication. Awards followed, but they were a byproduct, not a goal. For Chip, the real reward was seeing a vision executed flawlessly, a car that could leave people speechless. Not just on television, but anywhere in the world. As the show's seasons slowed and eventually shifted platforms, casual viewers assumed Foose had stepped away from the industry. In reality, he was busier than ever. He appeared at car shows, participated in conventions, and launched collaborations that pushed automotive design into new territory. Television exposure had opened doors, but the heart of his career remained in the workshop, where he could shape vehicles without compromise. His passion for innovation never waned, and the desire to inspire young designers kept him engaged in ways that cameras could not capture. Chip also began to focus on mentorship. He understood that fame and skill were not enough without a commitment to the future of the craft. Through workshops, speaking engagements, and personal guidance, he nurtured aspiring designers, passing on knowledge accumulated over decades. To Foose, this was as important as any award or television appearance. The vehicles he created would eventually become exhibits and highlights, but the people he trained would carry his legacy forward, ensuring that his influence persisted far beyond his own hands. Behind the public persona, there was a man driven by dedication and curiosity. Chip Foose wasn't defined by a show's schedule or by the fleeting attention of fans. He was defined by the relentless pursuit of excellence, the integrity of his designs, and the lives he touched through his craft. Every car told a story not just of speed or style, but of patience, vision, and unyielding effort. By the end of this era, it was clear Foose had never truly left the automotive world. He had merely shifted the spotlight from television to the workshop, where his impact would last far longer than any season of Overhauling. Fans might have feared he had disappeared. But the truth was that Chip Foose had always been exactly where he needed to be, creating, mentoring, and inspiring the automotive community in ways that would endure for decades. At 87, Anthony Hopkins finally broke his decades-long silence about one of the greatest actors to. What struck Hopkins most was Olivier's relentless pursuit of perfection. Every rehearsal, every line reading, every character study was scrutinized with a rigor that could intimidate even the most seasoned actors. For Hopkins, it was a masterclass in the discipline of the craft, but it was also a mirror reflecting his own insecurities. Could he measure up? Could he command attention without copying, without fading into the brilliance around him? The questions haunted him, shaping his approach to acting in ways that would define his career. Over the years, Hopkins came to appreciate the duality of Olivier's influence. On one hand, Olivier was a benchmark of excellence, an icon whose achievements set the standard for generations. On the other hand, he was a human being with flaws, quirks, and an intensity that could unsettle those around him. Understanding both sides allowed Hopkins to grow not just as an actor, but as a person navigating the rarefied world of high-stakes theater and film. Reflecting on those early experiences decades later, Hopkins describes them with a mixture of reverence and honesty. He doesn't idolize blindly, nor does he shy away from acknowledging the challenges of working alongside such a towering figure. For him, Olivier was not only a master to emulate, but also a mirror showing what was required to reach the pinnacle of the craft. It was in that tension, between admiration and self-examination, that Hopkins discovered the essence of his own approach to acting: rigorous preparation, fearless commitment, and a willingness to confront one's own limitations. By the time Hopkins achieved international fame, the lessons gleaned from observing and interacting with Olivier had become deeply ingrained. The young actor who once trembled in the presence of a legend had transformed into a performer capable of commanding any stage or screen. Yet even decades later, at 87, Hopkins finds himself reflecting on Olivier with fresh insight. Only now, after a lifetime of experience, can he articulate the truth of their connection, the admiration, the challenges, and the lessons that shaped not just his career, but his understanding of artistry itself. As Anthony Hopkins matured as an actor, his encounters with Laurence Olivier became more than fleeting impressions. They were formative experiences that shaped his understanding of performance, discipline, and the nuances of human emotion. Hopkins has often described Olivier not merely as a legendary figure, but as a teacher in the harshest sense, one who imparted lessons not through explicit instruction, but through observation, presence, and the unspoken expectations he carried. For a young actor, working near Olivier was both exhilarating and intimidating. Hopkins recalls sitting in rehearsals, watching Olivier dissect every line, gesture, and inflection with surgical precision. It wasn't enough to recite words convincingly. Olivier demanded a total embodiment of character, a merging of intellect and intuition. Every subtle pause, every tiny shift in expression was deliberate. To those unprepared, it could seem overwhelming. To Hopkins, it was awe-inspiring yet humbling. He realized early that emulating Olivier's genius wasn't the goal, understanding it and learning from it was. Hopkins also became acutely aware of the human side of Olivier, the man behind the legend. He noted Olivier's intensity, which could sometimes border on imperiousness. The same actor who could mesmerize an audience with effortless charisma could be exacting and critical in private. Hopkins admits that at first, this duality was confusing. How could someone so brilliant also seem distant or harsh? Over time, he recognized that Olivier's rigor and occasional abrasiveness were inseparable from his artistry. The pursuit of perfection demanded uncompromising standards, and Olivier's demeanor reflected that unyielding commitment. One anecdote Hopkins often references involves a particularly challenging scene in a stage production. Olivier, known for his perfectionism, made the young actor redo the same sequence repeatedly, not of malice, but because he refused to settle for anything less than truth in performance. Hopkins describes the moment as pivotal. It was exhausting, frustrating, and, ultimately, enlightening. He realized that the work required to reach Olivier's level wasn't glamorous. It was painstaking, disciplined, and at times, brutally honest. Beyond the immediate lessons in craft, Olivier taught Hopkins about the psychology of performance. The great actor's presence demanded respect, focus, and a constant readiness to engage fully with the moment. Hopkins learned that acting wasn't just about memorizing lines or delivering emotion convincingly. It was about inhabiting an entire world, commanding attention without overt effort, and maintaining a balance between vulnerability and control. Observing Olivier navigate these subtleties reshaped Hopkins' approach to his own roles, giving him the confidence to tackle complex characters while honoring the discipline required to portray them authentically. Hopkins has admitted that admiration for Olivier was sometimes tinged with envy. Recognition of the bar set so impossibly high. Yet this envy was not destructive. It was motivating. He pushed himself relentlessly, studying not just Olivier's performances, but his preparation, his work ethic, and his interactions with colleagues. Every encounter became a lesson in professionalism and dedication, and Hopkins internalized these experiences, carrying them through his career as both shield and guide. By the time Hopkins began earning acclaim on the international stage, Olivier's influence had been fully absorbed into his artistry. He no longer viewed the older actor as an untouchable legend, but as a benchmark of excellence that informed every choice he made. The fear, admiration, and inspiration that marked his early experiences evolved into respect and understanding. Recognition that greatness comes with a cost, and that enduring impact requires both brilliance and humility. Now, at 87, Hopkins can reflect with clarity on the complexities of that relationship. He speaks openly about Olivier's genius and flaws, offering a candid perspective rarely seen in the shadows of such towering figures. What emerges is not scandal or gossip, but a nuanced portrait. A young actor learning, struggling, and ultimately thriving under the influence of a master. Hopkins' truth about Olivier is one of respect, honesty, and the enduring power of mentorship, revealing the human side of legend and the profound effect it can have on those fortunate enough to witness it firsthand. As Anthony Hopkins' career progressed, the lessons he absorbed from Laurence Olivier continued to shape his work in profound ways. By the time Hopkins took on major roles in film and theater, he had internalized Olivier's exacting standards, his command of presence, and his unwavering commitment to authenticity. Every performance, every character, carry echoes of those early observations, the meticulous attention to detail, the rigorous preparation, and the understanding that an actor's responsibility extends beyond the lines on a page. Hopkins often reflects on how Olivier's intensity was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it could intimidate and unsettle, leaving young actors like him acutely aware of their limitations. On the other hand, it inspired respect and diligence, forging an understanding of what it truly meant to dedicate oneself to the craft. Hopkins learned that brilliance required more than talent. It demanded discipline, patience, and the willingness to confront one's own vulnerabilities on stage and screen. These lessons became the backbone of his approach, guiding him through iconic roles in The Silence of the Lambs, The Remains of the Day, and countless other performances where subtlety and depth defined his characters. Beyond technique, Olivier influenced Hopkins' perception of the actor's inner life. Olivier's ability to inhabit characters fully combining intellect, emotion, and physical presence taught Hopkins that true acting is a synthesis of mind and body. He saw how Olivier could command a room without seeming to perform, creating a palpable reality that captivated audiences effortlessly. For Hopkins, the lesson was clear. Acting is as much about presence and awareness as it is about dialogue and action. Hopkins also came to appreciate the human complexity behind Olivier's genius. The masterful actor could be exacting, impatient, and intimidating. Yet he also exhibited moments of warmth, generosity, and mentorship. Hopkins recognized that Olivier's flaws were inseparable from his brilliance, that the same intensity that could unsettle colleagues was also the force that created magic on stage and screen. Understanding this duality allowed Hopkins to approach his own work with greater empathy, both for himself and for those with whom he collaborated. Over the decades, Hopkins would recall specific instances of Olivier's influence with a mixture of admiration and honesty. He remembers watching Olivier navigate difficult scenes with seamless control, observing the precision of every gesture and tone, and noting the dedication behind what seemed effortless to the audience. These memories became reference points throughout his career, guiding his choices and providing a model for achieving authenticity under pressure. Hopkins realized that greatness is not accidental. It is the product of relentless practice, self-discipline, and the courage to embrace challenges fully. Even as Hopkins himself became a legendary figure, he never lost sight of Olivier's lessons. He speaks of Olivier not with blind reverence, but with respect grounded in experience, a recognition that the master's brilliance shaped his own path. For Hopkins, the truth about Olivier is layered: the awe-inspiring talent, the human flaws, the rigorous discipline.